Oh snap, Glaze is going live.
It was a little crew of them, you know, Glaze and some other brothers, and they used to go out, you know, every time you hear somebody doing something, they used to go out there and do crazy shit, you know, come back and then you hear all the shit they did and shit like that. This was the gang side, like we had war with the Jamaicans, and from there everybody started calling us the A-Team. And from there, we just had a strictly code that nobody we didn't know couldn't walk on this side. And even people that lived in the projects, they know like if they didn't have the communication with us, they couldn't walk over on this side.
Brian by himself went to these guys and approached, you understand, one of the leaders and said, yo, listen here, as long as you don't mess with me or my family, I ain't got nothing against you. He did this on his own.
I got me a gun, a 38, and I walked through there. And as I walked through there, you know, say, whip the gun and my thing, and I walked through the side, waiting for somebody from the A-Team or anywhere come up to me and say anything. Because if they would have, the first thing for me, I'm gonna blast them in their face.
I remember when Glaze started working with the A-Team, and he would come in the building and see us. We would play pity pat, and he would see us. Sometimes he would give us money.
Glaze and somebody else came home, you know, and I was telling my people, I said, yo, you know, we should put them down. But my man was like, nah. But then Glaze came over himself, and he talked to my man, and they made an agreement. Next thing I know, he was down with us. You know what I'm saying?
I was around when the A-Team and Brian took over Fountain Avenue. And during that time, I always had my question, why did he go with these guys?
Brian Gibbs basically took over that side of the project and on Fountain Avenue by force. He was a gunman, and you know, he was somebody to be feared, somebody to be reckoned with, and I believe that whoever had it before he took it realized he was a force to be reckoned with, and maybe it was better to back down than confront him.
It was a very significant setback, not only for me, the police department, and the district attorney's office, because we believed that we had Brian, quote unquote, dead to rights. The wrinkle in the whole situation was that the individual who confessed and agreed to cooperate refused to cooperate against Brian. His fear of Brian and his fear of Brian's retaliation against him and his family members prevented him from actually following through on the deal. So as a result, the case became relatively weak.
Even when he wasn't around, he was around. I mean, his people were around, and people were fearful. So even when he was in jail, I don't feel like anybody decided they were going to just take over for Brian Gibbs. You know, you were going to have to earn your spot if you got that spot. You know, you were going to have to take the way he took it. You were going to have to take it back that way.
I'm going with Cat.
The decision he made to go work in Queens, I never really agreed with it, because by then we was getting plenty of money. So I didn't feel the need that he should have took that on.
He was telling us, yo, I'm gonna be fucking with Catton when I come home. I was like, yo, them dudes is already hot. You know what I'm saying? Like, to fuck with them individuals, like, shit gonna get crazy. And but that's the decision he made,
By the mid to late 80s, Brian had associated himself with probably the most ruthless and notorious cocaine crack enterprise in the city, that being Howard Pappy Mason and Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols. Brian was a competitor of theirs for a period of time, but they were smart enough to see the utility and value of having someone as dangerous as Brian on their side, and they recruited Brian to be one of their top lieutenants and to take over the East New York section of their operation. By then, because that organization was suspected of actually killing a parole officer Brian Rooney in 1985. They were all over everyone's radar screen. So Brian's name started to appear and come across my desk on a fairly regular and consistent basis.
He was building a name in and out of prison, in the jailhouse, you know. And I mean, he really had a reputation of cats fearing him at that time, you understand? So.
And Eminem, Money and Murder.
He came to my house one day, you know, he like, you know, to my mom, he said, Miss Marlene, he said, yeah, my name is Eminem now. So like, my mom like, what's Eminem? He said, Money and Murder.
By the mid-1980s, I had started hearing the name Brian Gibbs on a regular basis. He had emerged as a street thug in East New York section of Brooklyn, who had then morphed into a drug dealer. And I was starting to hear more and more about violence associated with Brian and his operation in the Pink Houses and the Cypress Houses in the East New York section of Brooklyn.
We knew that he had an association with the guys out in Queens. Mm-hmm. We weren't sure, you know, that he was in, you know, what his involvement or how the involvement entangled with Brooklyn, mm-hmm. but we knew that he was involved with these guys in Queens.
I had initiated a special task force within the DA's office, where I was deputy chief at that time, the Special Investigations Unit, which was specifically designed to amass intelligence on drug operations throughout the county and throughout the city. It's difficult for me to try to quantify or extrapolate just how much Brian and the people associated with Fat Cat and Pappy were making, but I could tell you that they were moving kilos of cocaine, they were selling crack by the barrel load, and in effect had become crack pioneers, because they realized, and were some of the first people to realize, that they can get twice and sometimes 3 times the value of crack cocaine out of the city. And they created a pipeline up and down the eastern seaboard, all the way down to Virginia, where they were getting $40, $50, $60 for a $10 vial of crack. They were way ahead of their...
Yo, Glaze! I just got to my favorite part of your book. This is Out of Prison as a New Person. So, page 308. May of 1998. That's actually when I had the pleasure of meeting you, and we worked together on that 10:30 to 3 a.m. shift, which was crazy. My respect level just went up like 10 more notches for you. So I knew about your past. I knew about everything that had gone on, but what I didn't know is you were going from $40,000 a day to, I think we were making $12 an hour there, that night shift, something crazy. So for you to be able to have that work ethic of going from slanging easy rocks to slanging heavy packages and working that night shift and just being the positive person you were that whole time and offering encouragement to everybody that worked that shift.
Have you checked your tire pressure today?
I don't have a flat.
Have you checked your blood pressure today?
No, I don't feel sick.